Welcome to Scaling with People, your weekly playbook for turning chaos into compounding growth. Each week, we go under the hood with battle-tested experts in all areas of business, from marketing to sales, operation, finance, and people, plus product and leadership, to unpack the plays, numbers, and systems that turn chaos into compounding growth. Learn straight from founders and experts who've done it and continue to do it successfully. There's zero fluff, just moves that you can steal immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Guide to HR, human expertise, AI-powered impact.
Welcome, everyone, to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Curry, your host and CEO and founder to Guide to HR. All right, founders, let's buckle up because today we're cutting through the busy work and getting straight to the systems that actually move the needle. Our guest, Matt Granados, CEO of LifePulse Inc., is on a mission to prove that productivity isn't about grinding harder. It's actually about aligning purpose with performance and building frameworks that scale faster than hustle ever could. From intentional leadership in the middle of chaos to practical duplicative systems your team can actually use, Matt's here to show us how to turn clarity into rocket fuel for growth. Well, welcome, Matt. I'm excited to dive into this conversation. But before we do, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, first off, I appreciate you having me on. Name's Matt Granados. You got that one down well. We love working with people. Like we're the strange entrepreneurs, a founder that I really like the people side of business, which I found a lot of people like the business side of business, and I like the business side. But as we built our first few businesses, I realized that the people actually were more enjoyable than just the business side. So that's kind of where our heart's always been. We accidentally came into this business. It wasn't an intention at all, which is funny because we're all about intentionality. However, we started this to solve a problem we had in our business, and then a very large organization, a Fortune 100 company, reached out and found our solution, our foundational solution, and said it solves their biggest personnel problems. Could we come in and talk with them? So we started this conversation. And then by the end of it, they actually told me about the business I had, and they were wondering why I didn't invoice them because I had no business. I told them I'd be happy to invoice them. They told me I didn't need to. They weren't going to pay me. But then I got another day out of them saying, hey, walk me through, why is this so needed? And what they said was, we can't connect our corporate desired metrics with our individual's desired lifestyle. Your system does exactly that. And that's how LifePulse started. That's how we got into it. It was not my desire to be a consultant. It was not my desire to be a keynote speaker. It was not my desire to be a coach. But as I've worked with more and more people, I have found, although it wasn't my desire at the time, it's always kind of been my calling. So that's how LifePulse started. My wife and I, we started it together. We do a lot of things together. She's the brains behind it. I'm the puppet on stage. And because of that, we get to make impact over optics, which is what we focus on, and make sure we're actually changing the people we're working with.
I love that. That's awesome. So, Matt, you said you founded a couple of companies. I'd like to put you on a hot spot for a second here. Can you share a lesson learned with the founders listening today?
Yeah. The biggest lesson, I've learned a lot of lessons, and really, what is the job of a founder? I always like to kind of say it's creative problem solving. Like that's all you do all day long, right? There's the business side of it, but the creative problem solving is the biggest thing. The biggest lesson that I learned was the fact that people don't naturally do what they should do. Like that is not the default expectation we should have. Although we'd like to, the people we hire aren't always the ones who show up to the job. It doesn't naturally just happen the way everyone would like it to. And because of that, we have to find a system that re-engages intention on a regular basis through a simple structure that does what we call perpetual development. So the lesson that I learned specifically was, again, there was an individual who, when I hired them, I went through the hiring process, what I would argue, perfectly. Spent money, had resources, had assessments, everything on paper made sense. And for some reason, within about 30 days, that individual who I hired never showed up. The body did, but the individual that was saying what they would do, never showed up. And it turned out, in between the time I hired and the time they showed up, a lot of things changed in their personal life. Nothing changed in the business world, nothing changed in their ability, but yet the personal side of their life crept into the professional side because you can't compartmentalize the two. And because of that, I never got the person who was in the job interview until we were able to equip that person to deal with their problems. And that was when I realized that it's not our job just to make sure and say, hey, they should do this, they should do that. We call that shoulding on people. Like we shouldn't should on people.
Or yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, what we should do is recognize that the individuals are only going to rise to the level that we have equipped them to be able to do. And when we do it properly, it's beautiful. And when we don't, it's painful for both parties.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting mindset and frame, like changing how you see it to where people show up differently that actually make a big impact to your business, and you're making an impact to them in their lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about being a founder is you get to bring people along your vision. But if you don't know your vision and you're not willing to articulate it and you're not confident in a way that when someone says, "Hey, Matt, why are we doing this?" And instead of me getting defensive and trying to defend my point, I'd rather be confident enough to explain my point, right? There's a big difference between this, right? Defending your point is going at odds. Explaining your point is actually letting them understand what you're saying. But if you find yourself defending yourself, it's likely because you don't truly have the confidence to be able to walk through it calmly with somebody. And that's not just with the vision, that's with implementing any solution. That's with almost any personnel problem you run into. If you find yourself defending yourself to an employee, you likely have already lost the fight. Now, you might fire them, right? They might lose the war, but that battle right there is already gone. And we don't want to lose the battles. And it's not all about who wins the war, it's who has the biggest damage going through. And we want to make sure it's not you or the person.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I could also see that being very true in your personal life and your personal relationships as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think we have been told as we grew up was, hey, don't bring your personal stuff to work. And what we found, and again, another lesson learned as a founder is as the leader, manager, owner, I'm the last to know everything that's going on with my people, right? Like they all know what's happening with each other. They talk about it. They go out with each other. I don't have time for that. I don't do that. I'm not involved on that in that level. So they all get personal relationships. I keep my personal life a little more separate. And
Yeah.
because of that, I don't know what's happening until Becky has a divorce from Sean and they both work in my company. Like, how did I not know that was going to happen? Or before this individual who is about to quit, everyone knew they had another job somewhere else. And then I get the letter they're going to leave. It's the reality that we as leaders, owners, founders, we distance ourselves and we wonder why our company has silos. We distance ourselves and we wonder why we don't know what's going on. When I had one of the worst times in business, which I'm sure we'll get into eventually, I call it my heartbeat. Um, I was the last to know everything in my life was falling apart. Everyone I told was there was issues. They're like, yeah, we could have seen that coming. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? They're like, we did. You just didn't listen. So that
Yeah.
element of we don't know what we don't know, and we think we know more than we do know. And until we actually can confirm what we don't know or do know, stop assuming you know more than you do.
Yeah. Wow, that's very powerful. All right, so kind of flipping a little bit on the script here. Founders are notorious for trying to out hustle problems, especially as we're getting into this AI
Yeah.
world, or we've been in it for a while now, right? But why doesn't hustle scale and what does?
Hustle doesn't scale because it's limited in its nature, right? And here's what I mean
True.
by that. There's high performers, there's optimal performers, right? And there's two other levels below performance that we work on. There's lazy and unaware. There's high potential, high performers, then optimal performers. Everyone has been told to try to be a high performer. Let me explain what a high performer is. High performer is high output, unsustainable pace compared to others. That means if you're
Mhm.
the fastest slow person, you're not actually fast, but compared to slow people, you're faster than them. So you just are still slow, but not as slow. A lot of times we've allowed status quo to drop, where as long as we're not bad, therefore we're assumed to be good. That's not a logical statement, but yet that's how culture, that's how the workplace has become. How many employees do we have that were like, yeah, but they're not bad employees, so we keep them? That is a
I hear that
terrible
from managers
mindset.
all the time.
Yeah, hey, well, they're not as bad as Johnny who, steals stuff all the time. Well, then Johnny's got to go too, but so does this status quo individual.
Yeah.
All that being said, hustle, there is a time and a place for that, but that can't be your pace. If that's your pace, you're going to lose. Your willpower, it does run out. Every single study shows willpower does run out. So there's a time and a place for it. So optimal performance is the same high output as a high performer, but it is at a sustainable pace compared to one's own ability. So you lose the comparison trap because I want to know if I'm working, Matt, as an individual, and I'm working at an optimal pace. If I can't do the job needed and I'm at an optimal pace, then I'm not qualified to do that job. And that's the reality of it. But if I'm not at an optimal level of performance, we'll never know if I could do it or not. So we want to focus on optimal performance, not high performance. And that's why the hustle stuff doesn't work. grinding stuff. Like, oh, we're just going to grind it out. Well, when you grind it out, if you don't understand what grinding something means, you're dwindling it down till it's nothing.
Yeah.
The concept of it is an oxymoron. And then what happens is we've learned through lies of culture and society and people in the industry, kind of like me, who do self growth and self development, is if you just put in the work, you're going to get the results. So we started idolizing the hard work, but not the smart work. And then what happens is we
Yeah.
start sitting there going, hey, you know what? Like, you have to be butt in seat for 8 hours straight. And now we start managing based on work, not results. So when somebody comes in, like we were talking about earlier, and starts leveraging tools like AI to optimize the outcome to get high output at a sustainable pace compared to their own ability, all of a sudden, as leaders, I'm amazed. Managers going, yeah, but it's not really them working because they're using AI. And I'm sitting there going, hey, knucklehead, bonus them. They're doing 5 times the work they've been doing at a higher
Yeah.
level, higher quality, and you're upset because they're using a tool. That's like having someone who's like, well, they're using Excel in order to make a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet looks really nice, but they didn't really use their blood on the page to actually write it out. That's
Yeah.
the
Or
level
yeah.
of ignorance and craziness that we're running into when it comes to optimization and optimal performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, well, the finance person didn't actually sit down and calculate by hand what our total revenue is versus our OPEX. So, and percentage of margin. So they're not very good because they didn't do it by hand. I mean, like, come on.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like,
Exactly.
it's ridiculous. So what do you think is the biggest productivity myth you've seen leaders falling for, and how does it actually hold them back?
Biggest productivity myth is to schedule your day out every minute.
Oh,
People think that
yes.
their
Oh,
schedule needs to be perfect and all on tack. Uh, we call it the 80-20 principle of planning. 80% of your life you can plan, 20% you can't. However, if you don't take care of the 80, the 20 feels like 100. All right, I'll walk you through that. That's the feeling of overwhelm you're experiencing and your employees are experiencing. I tell people all the time, we have a big program we're putting together here in St. Louis where we're bringing in kind of high top performers. And the conversation I have with them is if you're doing your job and you're feeling burnt out, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Either you're underqualified or your approach is wrong. Most people are not underqualified. So when it comes to the productivity, 80% of your life you can plan, 20% you can't. If you don't take care of the 80, the 20 feels like 100. When we go to set up people's plans and we work with them to build out their weekly plan, because everything we do is on a weekly basis, they sit there and they're like, well, man, my plan got messed up. So what do? They throw the whole plan away. And, and one of our clients who kind of opened our eyes to this actually trains the SEAL Team 6 Delta team, which I didn't know that even existed till we started working with them. And I said, why do you use our system? And he said, because this system fits well with how we plan our operations, which was a huge compliment. He said, the plan means nothing, but planning means everything. Because when reality comes in, it's a live war. So the planning is where the value is. It's getting your head straight so you can approach the day. We had a client right now that is going through a huge acquisition. And then all of a sudden, somebody leaked information that should have been confidential, which then caused the other individual to deal with a bunch of garbage. All of a sudden, now we're running into this thing that was nobody's fault in their own, but all of a sudden the whole week is flipped upside down. So what did they do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, new variable, reset your plan. And the second biggest myth when it comes to productivity is people become slaves to their plan. They don't allow any room for margin. They book it all the way up and then they wonder why they didn't realize they were going to get a flat tire. Things are going to happen. If you are
yeah.
trying to do your work at 100%, you're going to lose. We actually tell every person that we are working with when they're hiring somebody, we call it the 180-100 rule. The individual you're hiring needs to be able to do 100% of their expected responsibilities at 80% of their ability to get 100% of their compensation. And they're always like, what are you talking about? I said, because if you're hiring someone who is at 100% to do just what needs to be done, the second you have a change, a hiccup, or even worse, growth, you're done. They're already on red line. They're already maxed. So
Yeah.
make sure when you're hiring for the qualification you need, not the bare minimum just to get their head to get by. So those are the two, I think, biggest things with productivity and hiring people to stay productive is making sure you're not hiring underqualified individuals to do the job at the pace you want them to.
I think a part of that too that I see a lot of times is that there's through the hiring process, you're not very clear on what you need.
Yeah.
And so you need to make sure you have that defined and very clear for your goals, current and long term,
Yeah.
and then hire to that. But I've seen founders flounder over that, like, oh, well, I need this. No, now I need this. Now I need this. And then they're like, why is it taking 3 months? Well, because you
Yeah.
keep changing what you're looking for, which is a completely different skill set. You want a senior. No, now you need a junior. No, now you want an executive. It's like you can't keep floundering. You need to figure out what is it you want before you even start wasting everybody's time and energy trying to find and hire that right person.
And what also comes to happen is as they're trying to figure out what they want, they're guessing at best. And what they're really doing, and this is kind of how our system formed so well, was we had all these big organizations coming to us saying, "Hey, here's my problem. Can you solve it? Here's my problem. Can you solve it? Here's my problem. Can you solve it?" And we gave them the same solution to all four of them. These are huge companies that we use every single day, from the tech space to the military, right? And it was
Mhm.
the same solution we offer. And I kept going, why did that work? I don't get why the same solution worked every single time. And it was because the individuals were not coming to me with the problem. They were coming to me with the symptoms.
Yeah.
And when people hire, they hire to solve symptoms, not problem. The way
Hmm.
I teach this is it's root cause analysis. So if I have a broken arm and I come to you and I say, man, my arm is broken, the bone is sticking out, it hurts really bad, can you help me? And you give me pain meds, the pain will go away. The broken
Yeah.
bone will not. What needs to happen is I have to reset it, which likely hurts. I have to put it in a cast, and you're not going to believe it. Humans have an amazing ability to adapt and heal, and the body will take care of it.
Yeah.
Our staff's the same way. So what happens is, when I find founders that run into that and they're constantly, they don't know what they want. It's because they're chasing symptoms. We call it symptomatic solutions. It's a terrible way to handle it, but it's what we go to first. So before you act on a symptom, what's your issue in your company? Communication is garbage. That's the symptom. What's the root cause? Ask yourself why 5 times. And once you get to that fifth why, you will see the true root cause. I think that's the easiest way to do a root cause analysis. And that's what
Yeah.
we do with every client before we come in. We then come in and find the root cause, which is likely a people related problem, which has nothing
Yes.
to do with work, but has to do with another problem in that person's life. We equip that person. That problem is corrected. Therefore, there is no more communication issue because the person is able to do the job at the level we need.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So, high growth startups, they're often pure chaos.
Yeah.
How can leaders stay intentional and keep their teams focused when the ground keeps shifting around them?
Yeah. So when there's change, right? There's this quote I love is change is inevitable, growth is intentional. Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
reminding yourself of that if you're not intentionally predicting the growth, you're lucky. And luck is not part of a strategic play. It's part of the outcome. Don't get me wrong, right? Take it when it comes. But the reality of it is if you are a fast paced growth startup, if you're funded very well so you can actually kind of grow and grow and grow, you have to understand that that might be part of your strategy. And if that's part of your strategy, it has to be based off the fact that we aren't going to have solid ground. And
Yeah.
when we hire people, we can't pretend like we're not what we are. We in our one book, Motivate the Unmotivated, one of the chapters talks about the concept of phantom stock. Phantom stock's a way that people like to initiate, especially startups that are fast growth. Hey, it's phantom stock. It's phantom stock. The word itself is like it's artificial stock. It's not real stock. We're making this up. And what happens is, unless your intention is to actually sell, IPO, or do something that's going to turn the stock into something worth something, offering equity and offering stock, let alone phantom stock, is not actually going to be a motivator. In the end result, it's going to be a demotivator. So, yes, you might get them in the door, but you're not going to get the results you want. So, when it comes to that, is realizing what are you? Hey, we're fast paced. We don't know what process we're doing because we're going to change it. I have one client where every almost 6 to 12 months, they're like a new startup because they bring in a new client that jumps them another $4 or $5 million in revenue. It's just the nature of what that industry is. And sometimes they'll bring in people who aren't willing to play at that pace. That's a problem. So
Yeah.
know who you are, be okay who you are. I think McDonald's was a great example. And they knew turnover was going to be high. So McDonald's is not going to pay me or you to come in to fix their turnover problem. That's part of their system.
Yeah.
You go to a dollar store, right? There's a specific margin of amount of theft that's going to happen. That's in their system. That's in their margins. They know it's going to happen. So instead of trying to fix that small percentage, they're focusing on what they can actually do to make a difference.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. But focus on what is you have control over.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you want to be a more chaotic environment, that's your decision and you have to live with the consequences of that. You
Yeah.
also get the benefit from the growth in that, right? So it's risk reward.
Mhm.
What I tell people though who are in a chaos situation, because this is what tends to happen. I work better in chaos. No, you don't. Humans don't. I get that you've been able to, and I say just because it works doesn't mean it's wise. So, like, okay, yeah, you're able to. Congratulations. But how much better are you when your desk is clean, your day's structured, you're not thrown off guard by something? Like, are you better or worse? No one says, oh, I'm worse. They might say I'm not as much on edge. I lose my edge. They might say something like that, but that's just because they aren't used to working in that way. Humans naturally work better with systems and rhythms. I always tell people systems and structure brings freedom, rhythm brings peace.
And there's a
That's
whole
how,
reason why, as children, your parenting books are telling you put your child on a schedule.
yeah, and guess what? Employers put your employees on a schedule. They work better. They do better. They're more fulfilled. They're less burnt out. All the things you're complaining about can be solved when you bring intention and structure, combine them together to get what we call that perpetual development. That's what we teach clients to do with their employees. Then once you have your employees at a maximum level, then the systems and process that you put in place, you're going to get the maximum benefit. If your employees are at 40%, which the average person in the workforce is at 40% of their ability,
Mm.
you're only going to get 40% of whatever system you're putting in place. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're sitting there going, why aren't I getting more out of this solution? Or if it's a client of yours and they're working with you and they're like, why am I only getting this much out of the solution? It's because the input's only at 40% of what it could be. So let's equip the people to get from 40 to 80. I don't need them at 100. At 80, doubling their output. You're not maximizing, you're not increasing your resources at all. You're going to get better results.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think kind of going back to knowing who you are, fast paced, chaotic, maybe even changing what you're doing every 6 to 12 months. When you're interviewing and hiring people, being very honest and transparent about that, right? Setting that
Yes.
proper expectations. And then that lets that individual self-elect out if that's something they know they can't handle or don't want to do. Maybe they're just about to bring another baby into the world, or maybe they know that they
Yeah.
have parents that they got to take care of. Like, so help yourself, help them, be transparent in that process, and you'll find out that you get better people in play because they are walking through the door understanding what is expected of them on day one.
And I even go so far as when I have someone who's so excited to work for me or a client has someone who's so excited to work for them that they'll say whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We put in part of the interview process is the unsell process. I want to try to unsell you on this. I like you like me. Let me tell you everything we're going to run into. You will email me and I will not get back to you, right? I will forget. I like you're going to are you okay with that? What do I need to know about you? And
Yeah.
that's where I like to see how honest is someone going to be. I'm
Yeah.
amazed at how much they play into the I'm going to unsell you. And now all of a sudden you hear stuff, you're like, whoa, that would have been an issue. Right. So
Right.
it's a back and forth of it. So be
Love
okay
that.
unselling people and have them unsell you. And you'll also understand how honest is this individual? How self-aware is this individual?
Hmm.
How trustworthy is this individual? And again, they might not have anything. They might just not have like you're not trying to catch them on anything, but you're trying to have a conversation to go, okay, I don't fire people because things are going well. People don't quit because things are going well. So what's going to happen when the bad things show up? Not if, when. 80-20. 80% you can
Right.
plan, 20% you can't.
Yep. That's so true. Well, so if a founder's listening today and they can only change one thing tomorrow to be intentional and productive, what should it be?
I would say plan your weeks using what I call reverse planning, right? So that would be the kicker of all of it. So plan your weeks. Don't plan your days. Don't plan your months. Plan your weeks. A day's too short. A month's too long. A week has a perfect timeline. The biggest reason I say do a week is because there's a perfect amount of structure and flexibility. It's close enough where there's a deadline where you're gonna work and get stuff done, but days are crazy. You never know what's going to happen. Uh, Reverse planning simply works like this. The way we've all been taught to plan is you make a list, you do a list. You make a list, you do a list. There's no strategy behind that. Reverse planning is you list everything you want to do this week. What do you want? Then You list what do you need to do? What did you commit to do? And then finally, you do what's important. So what you want to do, what you need to do, what's important. And what's important is related to the goals you have. If you focus on that as a founder, you will not let people down. You will have more than enough bandwidth to get stuff done. The thing about founders that they don't realize is they are extremely capable. They're just spread too thin, not because they don't have enough time, because they're spreading themselves among too much time. If you take a founder and you put them in an hour, you got an hour to figure this out. They're going to come with a solution. But you take that founder and say, hey, get this to me when you can. 4 weeks later, they're going to get to what's needed. So It's all about, yeah, exactly. Getting it out of your head onto paper. That makes it look kind of like a puzzle. And there's a strategy to a puzzle. You do the corners first, the edges, then you work your way in. It's as simple as that. You can't do it all in your head. Your brain's not built to work that way.
Well, Matt, I appreciate your time and so much wisdom. And I hope the listeners have pulled a bunch of different things that they should be thinking about how to run their own self and their team and their business differently come tomorrow. And hopefully that will make an impact for them and help them scale their business. So thanks again for joining us today. And for the listeners, thanks so much. I hope you did get some wisdom out of Matt. I know I certainly did. And we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Scaling with People. If you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, share it with someone building something big. And hey, I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment, shoot me a message, or start a conversation. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the bold, unfiltered strategies we drop every week. I'm Guinevere Query, founder and CEO of Guide to HR, where we help high-growth companies scale smart with people-first strategies and AI-powered systems that don't just keep up, they lead. If you're building fast and want your HR to move faster, head to guidetohr.com and let's talk. And remember, scale isn't just about speed, it's about people. Until next time, have a great one.